Hey, what's going on? Just checking in here, doing like a first time intro, just to, I guess, let you guys get to know me and a little bit more of my story. So, this is Gemini Guy, and what I like to call teaching or showing the royalties of recovery. It's one of those things that if you want it, you can have it. It's not limited to any one group or any one kind of person. It does, however, take a lot of hard work and dedication, but with time, it gets easier and the rewards become better. So, I have, or excuse me, 4 years. Yeah, it's been a long and very interesting journey. I, born and raised in Salem, Oregon. It's the capital, but it's one of, it's not the biggest city in Oregon. Good childhood, good upbringing. Just was one of those kids who thought, I thought it was cool to, be smoking weed and skipping school and things like that. And hanging out with those kinds of people progressed into, more and more bad things and things I shouldn't have necessarily been doing. So that, morphed into a pill addiction, and as the laws got tougher and tougher on that, ultimately to a heroin addiction. I, did that for, and by that I mean, smoking weed and doing pills for, maybe 2 to 3 years. And then that led into doing heroin. And that went on for 4 or 5 years and ultimately led me to incarceration, getting in trouble. September 2nd, 2011, the police busted in my door. SWAT team came in, guns drawn, and so it was me and I think 3 other people lived in the house, but there was like 5 or 6 of us there, and they, came in, they searched everything, found pretty substantial amount of drugs, a little bit of money, some guns, just all the things that, go along with living that lifestyle. And obviously after that, I went to jail. I think I did 2 weeks in there and got like ROR, release on own recognizance. And, I went to my court stuff and showed up, and that definitely played into my favor. So, but out. So, I go to jail, I get out, and granted I was in there for 2 weeks, so I was just barely starting to feel better. I still had that addiction mentality, and I hadn't changed any of my behaviors, so, I start calling people. Well, naturally, and I would be the same way, everyone's paranoid, like, oh, you just got busted and you're out, like, are you trying to hit me up, blah, blah, blah. So I had a little bit of trouble, getting my fix, if you will, but, people, I think it kind of started to show, because, so there was a few people that were there for the bust, but didn't go to jail, or I guess went and released, or got, their summons or whatever, and they were like, hey, yeah, he pretty much took the blame for everything, and it wasn't a suspicious situation. And granted, they tried, they, pulled some of us out just one-on-one and took us out back, and he's like, oh, you want to make this all go away? It's like, no, when you're, how do I want to put this, when you're living that kind of lifestyle, like, you got to be willing to accept the repercussions. And that there's a lot of that going on today, where, somebody gets busted and they just, they will tell anything so they don't have to go to jail and be sick or whatever. And nobody wants to go and do that, but it's like that old saying, if you can't do the crime, or if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And I mean, I think I knew that. It's a lifestyle that no matter what, at some time there will be consequences. It's not if, it's when. And at first I thought that it wouldn't. I'm special, better than, like, I'm too smart to get caught, blah blah blah. Which, the whole thing, the whole cop showing up and didn't have anything to directly do with me. But I'm not going to get into that. It doesn't really matter. It's so far in the past, and I'm over it at this point. And truthfully, grateful for the experience. Probably saved my life. Just the downward path that I was on, it wasn't a good thing. And my life's so much better today that, it is what it is, and I'm grateful for it. So yeah, I get out, and I'm, going back and forth to court or whatever, more like maybe once a month. Still using and doing stupid stuff. But at this time it was a little different because, before, obviously, I was in a little bit better position because I was the man. I had the big sack. I had money. Whereas now they'd taken all that away, and it was like, I didn't know necessarily that I was going to prison, but I knew there was going to be some sort of repercussions. So, and honestly, I was grateful to be, ridded of that stress, like, because it becomes stressful having to meet up with everyone and do this and that, and getting busted was a way to wash my hands of that. I didn't have to worry about it anymore. But I still had that addiction, so I had to feed that addiction somehow. So I became just, another junkie, for lack of a better word. And, I did that for a few months, and, finally, I think the first year offer was like 7 years or something like that, and I thought that was crazy. I'm a 19-year-old kid, never been in any trouble, and, I mean, granted, it wasn't a small amount of dope, but it just didn't, the time did not fit the crime, so to speak. So, I hadn't taken it to trial. We were still in the, phases of just the first initial court proceedings. Like, they, shoot an offer, and then we talk about it, and then we do a counter offer, and so I think they had went from like 7 years to 56 months, if I'm correct, and that still just seemed excessive. I remember it was like, I think I had court in 2 days, 2 or 3 days, something like that. And my lawyer calls and he says they're offering 30 months with good time. And I really didn't even have to think about it. I was like, all right, let's do it. Because after looking at 30 months, 2.5 years sounds pretty freaking good. I mean, so, and then it started dawning on me. It was becoming more real. It was happening, and I, just a young kid, confused and not really knowing what to expect. So, I think that night before court, I, went and got loaded for my last time or whatever, and I had like 2 Suboxone. I was like, oh, this is going to be awful, and you're supposed to wait like 24 hours or whatever to take it. So I had done whatever that night before. I think I had court at like 1 or 2, and I, was getting ready, went with my mom and my cousin, and right before I went in, I took 1 strip of Suboxone, went into court, and my sister was there too, I think. and they, we went through the sentencing stuff, and they accepted the 30-month plea, and, started from there. I, looked over to tell my mom and dad, or my mom, that I loved her, and was going to give her a hug, and they said, nope, cuffed me up and left, and I didn't. So in my county, Tuesdays and Thursdays is like transport day, and I think it was a Wednesday, and so they sent me to the holding cell, and the next day I left, headed to the intake center, which, believe it or not, people have never been, I've told this, and they're like, really? But the intake center is actually the women's prison. So, they send us to Coffee Creek, and you spend anywhere from, 3 weeks to 3 months there. They'll just classify you and figure out where you're going to go. So, I went there, and it was a little weird because, so some of the people I went up with, I ended up seeing a dude that I had, been in the mix with, and this was like his second or third time in prison. He was a little surprised to see me, quite frankly, but, and he's actually, I'm not going to say his name or anything, but he actually just got in trouble again, and he's one of those dudes that's, been in and out of trouble quite a bit. Well, the feds decided, guns and drugs, and feds don't really like, well, they don't like either, but guns especially. So he's at SCI Sheridan right now. Things have probably just gotten a little more real for him. But anyways, so I see, some people I know, and, when you're living that kind of life, you associate with people that are doing the same thing. So it wasn't really surprising me to see people I knew, but so we're talking on the way up there, and I'm just trying to get a feel for it, what's it going to be like. I asked the question outside, but you don't really know. You can put together as many stories and things as you want, but that doesn't mean that, no matter what, you're not going to know until you go. So I get there, they do all kinds of medical tests and a dental x-ray, and just make sure that you don't have something that is contagious. They do the TB test and things like that, just so you're safe to be around other people. So, I get done with all the medical stuff, and they send me to my unit. And, being as it's intake, you have a wide array of people. People that are doing 13 months, people that will never get out again. So it's different, to say the least. So we get in, you have your bedroll and pillow and all that stuff, and there's all kinds of people hooting and hollering, and it's like an L-shaped, at least the section where the cells are is L-shaped. So in the long run, it's just normal cells, and then in the small part of the L, if that makes sense, this part, at least in the unit I was in, were seg cells. But anyway, so you have people hooting and hollering, and it's like, God, this is ridiculous. So I go in and meet my cellie, who I thought I was going to be in a bad situation to begin with. I get to intake, and the kid was kind of weird. I'm going to be 100% honest. I thought he was some sort of sex offender, or so. And I think everyone knows that a good dude doesn't hang out or sell with a sex offender. So I ask him, right off Jump Street, and he tells me, no, I accidentally killed one of my best friends. You want up or not? So, and he kind of showed me his he did show me his paperwork and some pictures, and I was like, alright, well, he might be a little weird, but he's not a bad dude. But then you're like, wow, I have a murderer in my cell. Kind of strange. So, I think the second or third day, there was an older guy who'd been in there or been in and out, and he knew how it worked. So, and for whatever reason, get down, Bailey. Get down. for whatever reason, he, we both suffered from heroin addiction. He put me on game. He kind of told me what to expect, what to do, just things to watch out for, and I'm super grateful for that dude. And there was a few other people too, don't get me wrong, but that kind of set me in motion. So I got more stories about this intake place, but we're gonna just fast forward a little bit for time's sake. So that day finally comes, and they say, roll up your shit, you're leaving. And they don't tell you, obviously, for safety reasons, when you're leaving or any of this. It's all the day of. So I go to the intake, or like the holding cell, that's what I'm looking for getting ready to leave. And this is December, I believe. Yeah, it was like the end of December. I went on, no, maybe it was January. Anyways, there's snow on the ground. And we're in Wilsonville, Oregon, if anyone's familiar with the area. And I'm heading to, I don't know where I'm heading, but the bus was going east. So we stopped in the Dalles because weather was so bad. But we literally, from just right once you get up to 84, all the way to like Umatilla, we're going like 20 or 30 miles an hour. There was so much snow on the ground. So there was 3 stops to drop people off, and that was Umatilla, Eastern Oregon, Pendleton, and Ontario. Well, the first stop is, we did 2 stops. No Ontario. First stop is Umatilla, and I don't know for sure because I've never been there, but I've heard from people, and it's not completely a PC camp, but there is more bad dudes there than good dudes. So I did not want to go there. And there's in a bus, they call it like ice cream van, because it was so cold back there you could see your breath when you blew out. Anyways, there was probably 15 to maybe 20 of us back there. Well, all but 4 people got out at Umatilla. And I was like, oh, thank God I'm not going. Not, like I said, there's good dudes there, but more bad dudes than good dudes. And I just didn't want to have to deal with it. So, in there, it's real flat, like low, not very tall building. So, and you can't see shit from back in that van anyway, so I was like, whatever. Well, I get to, EOCI, my first home prison where I'm actually staying for a while, and this place looks like a castle. Like, it is so huge. Well, it turns out it's an old, like, hospital or, like, cuckoo place, and it is huge. It's like 4, 5 stories in some place. And they have one of those, like, crematorium stacks, like, where they used to burn bodies. It was like something out of the movies. And, I'm a young 19-year-old kid. I'm like, what did I get myself into? It was, I still think about it sometimes, and it's honestly a little crazy. And there's, people walking the track, and there's just a lot going on, a lot of stuff to take in. And so they take us into the intake center, R&D, receiving and departing, and give us a bedroll and clothes. In Oregon, you get blue jeans, blue shirt, a light blue chambray, which is like a button-up shirt, and a jean jacket. So just wearing normal clothes again was kind of weird. And we go through some of the ins and outs. They tell us the rules and then say, hey, this is where you're going. And I'm like thinking I'm going to get escorted, or they're going to show, he says, oh, you're going to A2, hands me my bag and points me out this door. He's like, go through the west gate. And I'm like, I don't know where or what this west gate is. So I'm literally wandering around, not wandering, like I kind of had an idea, this giant prison. So I go to what they call the West Gate. He says, hey, A's far building over, 2, second one up. So I go up, and here when you walk in, it's like, so, you know, I walk up the stairs, I go right in, and you walk into the day room. There's, you know, chairs on the left, chairs on the right, TV on the same wall as the door. You walk straight in, and there's the little booth. Well, like straight from the door is the showers. And there's, I think, 7 heads, but, you know, only 3 people really shower at a time in there. And I see people in there showering, and I'll never forget this younger Mexican kid goes, I bet you didn't think you were going to see the showers right when you got here. It's like, well, no, not exactly. And so I go to the station, and I ask the guard, you know, I give the guard my information, and he goes, you're going to A217. I'm like, alright, cool, you know. And there's all kinds of people watching me. I'm the new blood, new fish, whatever. And I get to 17, and I look in the door, and I'm like, what? Like, it's a 4-man cell. You know, in our jail, it's all 2-man stuff. So it was just like kind of a shock, if you will. And I introduce myself, and, you know, I tell them what I'm here for, and they're like, all right, well, you know, showed me my area, and it was I'm so grateful. 3 really cool guys, you know. Those dudes helped me out a lot, honestly. Like, just, there's so many weird things, which I'll get into at a later date, but yeah, so, and then one of them was like, oh, when was the last time you had a cup of coffee? I just thought about it. It's like, I don't even know. Had a cup of coffee, kind of unloaded my things, and was, you know, in sponge mode. Like, what can I learn? So, yeah. That's just a little bit of the beginning of my story, if you will. I'll continue on it, and then, well, maybe I'll do a video little different, and then finish the story out. But I think that's a good place to leave off. Yeah, God, it's kind of weird. I haven't recited that story like that in a while, so it's surreal and bringing back a lot of memories. Yeah. With that, yeah, we'll leave it at that. And just remember, if I can get clean and recover, as cliche as it sounds, so can you. Just have to put in the work and want it. So with that, I'm going to sign out. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like and a subscribe. If you got anything you want to ask me or possibly know about, leave a comment and I will get back to you. Thanks, guys. See you next time.